Everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my channel. If you've not been here before, it's where I talk about twin flame consciousness and twin flame process or journey. So this video is going to be a reading for the new moon, which is coming up in the UK at about 5:30 in the morning, I think, on Tuesday morning, Tuesday the 1st of February, and it's in Aquarius. New moon in Aquarius. So I'm just going to shuffle these cards and then we'll see if there's any information coming out. Right, so the first thing they're talking about is obviously Aquarius is about the brain. It's an air sign, so it's about information through the brain. Something's jumping out, but I've got my eyes shut at the moment, so I'll tell you what it is. Just put it there. It's about the brain. It's about higher levels of communication through the brain. So it's about authentic communication from source coming through. It's a really bright energy. They're talking about a very high energy this moon, even though it's dark moon. It's quite a high light energy, source energy coming through. People may be getting instances of claircognizance, which is basically just clarity, you know, sudden aha moments. It's also, they're saying, Aquarius is a sign of, how do I put this? It's like the sign of the inventor. I think everybody knows that. But in that, there's a lot of wacky thought, right? Kind of, crazy is not really a nice word, but it's like out there, right? Outlandish thought almost. So kind of things coming in from left field. They're talking about like unexpected communications, wacky kind of communications, things like that. Now, how that's going to be, you know, we're talking twin flame process. I feel, well, masculine communication, basically. So when you're looking at the brains of the two physical manifested participants in the twin flame process, so you'll have one that's operating from masculine and one operating from feminine primarily. The brains, the masculine brain is the egoic brain, works from a lower consciousness primarily, although can receive inspiration from source when the alignments are right, when the vibration is right, whereas the feminine, who works primarily from feminine, is the connection to source primarily, so would receive more information from that higher consciousness. But then that's also, you've got to look at where you're at personally, because in the process itself is the dissolving of the ego, which means that you go in and out of ego and higher consciousness, whether you're the one working from the feminine or the masculine perspective primarily. So there's a lot of like ups and downs in this process, which you're probably aware of if you're going through it, where you go into ego and you thrash around in there, battling it out inside yourself in a lot of negative emotion, and then you rise up into higher consciousness where you're free of the ego and you're feeling a lot better and aligned with what source is, which is happiness and joy and freedom and just feeling good generally. So so how that's got to do with this Aquarius moon, basically. Here we are. Right, I'm opening my eyes now. So we've got the Queen of Pentacles jumping out. This is the physical manifestation of the twin who's primarily working from the feminine. Whether that is a man or a woman, it's irrelevant. It's the one working from the feminine. This is about groundedness as well, Queen of Pentacles. So there might be need for, excuse me, the one working primarily from the feminine to ground themselves Grounding is done through coming into contact with nature. Really, yes, that's what they're saying. So if you're living in a part of the world where you're able to go outside because it's warm enough, take your shoes off and stand in the earth, then that's the best way of doing that. And breathing deeply and maybe looking at the sky and just, acknowledging that you are human. Here I am, I'm human. Look at me stood here. That kind of thing, right? So that's grounding. If you're not living somewhere where it's warm enough to do that, you can still look at nature outside of the window. You still be around your plants and talk to your plants and inside the house, that kind of stuff. So that's a good way of doing that. Also taking your shoes off, they're saying, and just standing on the floor with bare feet because it helps to ground through bare feet wherever you are. So there's that, right? So then back to this aspect of it being Aquarius being like outlandish, vibrationally quite like anything goes energy. Let's see how this works out, kind of a thing. It's quite experimental. I think that's the word I'm looking for. It's Aquarius has no fear of experimentation. So it's really, and that's really having no fear, because if you think about everything is experimentation until you've done it, right? Everything, anything you're about to say, before you've said it and it's got out there, is an experiment in what you're going to say that time you say something. So it's that kind of energy. So it's like anything could be said right now. The reason it's about the masculine saying it is because it is a new moon. It's a masculine moon, but it's a light moon, they're saying. So it's an attachment to source energy. So it's divine inspiration, which is an aha moment, which is clarity, which is claircognizance, which is also clairaudience, which is being told by source it's time to do something. There's method to the madness, they're saying, right, with this Aquarian energy. So there's a reason for everything that can't be, validated through the physical experience. Because physical experience, ego, which is the very concrete part of ourselves in the brain that is like, I think, therefore I am, which is not the truth, because you are actually vibration, not thought, primarily. So I am energy, therefore I am is the truth, authentic truth. But so the clarification of source through the physical manifested person, and what were they talking about? Yes, the ego is concrete, right? So it's like just it doesn't really see. It's not really fluid. It doesn't have the ability to kind of want to experiment. It looks at a stone and calls it a stone, right? And that's kind of, I've done with it with that. It's not like, let's lift it up and look underneath and see what's going on there and find, oh, it's a tortoise. It's not a stone after all, you see. But higher energy, Aquarius is going to always pick it up and have a look underneath, because it's got that childlike energy in the brain that is wanting to know more and function from a higher level, which is source energy. So that makes sense in some way. Physical manifestation, feminine, groundedness, twin flame consciousness, right? Twin flame process requires that everything of this process functions through the feminine. So the feminine is the creator of the process. So that's why it's important to ground yourself, because what comes through you, the vibration, is the vibration of both masculine and feminine. That's in you, but also in another person. So you receive through that other person what it is that they're feeling and how they, not what they're thinking, but how they're thinking. So if they're in a funk, if they're not feeling good, you might get that feeling coming through. If it's the time for that to come through, because it's not always the time for it, because it's a process. Sometimes it's just time for your own feelings to come through, but sometimes it's time for their feelings to come through, and how they're thinking. Sometimes it's time for that to come through you. That's part of the creation process of the dissolving of the ego, because you dissolve their ego for them by you feeling that coming through in the way that you think. So you'll be thinking egoically if they're coming through you. You will be in concrete. You will be in denial of the relevance of high energy. You will be in denial of your higher self, of your own connection to source. You might want to be pushing. You might be feeling like you want to push it away and just get on with being the job of being human without that coming through you at times. And when you do, that's the masculine coming through you from the other person that you're connected to as you dissolve that for them. So again, ground yourself, because this is about the brain, it's about the masculine, and it's about outlandish thought. It's about crazy manifestations in thoughts. So you're going to maybe need to ground yourself as that comes through you. Also, it's about everything in Twin Flame process is about dissolving that ego. So as it dissolves, like they say, it comes through. You might find yourself in there tearing your hair out, with what is the human experience and not feeling it's a pleasant one. Right, cards, let's have a look. The Magician, so manifestation, having everything, all the tools at hand, that's inside of yourself, vibrationally, emotionally, mentally, encased in your physical body. Number 1, higher energy. And 2 of Swords, that is masculine and feminine. Masculine being the swords of the ego, feminine being the heart of the moon. That's in the picture there. The World, which is freedom. So it's energy. It's like the, how do we put it? It's like the freedom of energy moving through you. So it's source energy moving through you. However that looks from the physical perspective. So when you're going through Twin Flame process, when you're in ego and you're flailing around in ego inside of yourself, either, what they call purging, which is this like aggressive feeling that you don't like what you're going through and you wish you weren't going through it, and however that's coming through your thoughts, everything has a higher purpose, right? So you will go into ego and experience far more ego at times than just a person walking around on this planet who is not going through this process. Conversely, you will come into so much more awareness of source energy, so much more existence in higher self than anybody walking around on this planet that's not going through this process. But you will do both in abundance, right? So you're going to go majorly into ego at some points as you clear through that masculine vibration, and you'll go majorly into higher self once you've cleared it. So just to know that as well. So this being about the brain, this moon, is like possibilities of both, depending on how you are proceeding through your process right now, and what's relevant to you at your point of the process. So if you think that, let's just get these out. Divine love, lovers, Hanged Man process and the process of creation. Whoop. Ace of Cups, which is brand new love, which is unconditional love basically, which is what the process is, right? It's coming into the higher energy of source, which is freedom and unconditional love. That's where it takes you. Then we've got happiness, 9 of Cups, so almost complete happiness, freedom, process, complete happiness. 10 of Swords, ending in the mind, so that's ending of the ego, process, ending of the ego, dissolving of the ego. And from dark to light, the ending of the battle. So the process runs concurrent with the process of manifestation and the ending of the battle, dark to light. So dark, ego, actually we should call it shadow really. I feel like shadow is ego, because you do come into full higher self, right, on this journey. So it moves from just the shadows to higher self. So we've got shadow and light. Shadow is ego, light is higher self, source, energy, which is really where you're at the point where you view everything vibrationally rather than egoically. So that point in this process is where everything in your life, you are seeing it from an energetic perspective. So you're not seeing the event that's happening to you as it's like concrete of the ego. You're seeing from a higher perspective, which is this event is happening vibrationally for a reason, right? Because everything on this through this process manifests into your life for a reason. Every single communication you've ever had is for the reason of transforming dark to light. So you have to witness shadow and dark, and you have to witness light as well to know the difference before you can come into an understanding of the difference. So all of that is meant to be exactly as it's meant to be from a witnessing perspective, an experiencing perspective. Right, the end point being only light, the Ace of Cups, which is what the process actually is. It's arrival into higher self and only light, where you're viewing everything vibrationally, and from there on, and nothing at all egoically. So it means it's a huge let go in terms of judgment, because the ego always wants to judge everything, whether it's good or bad, whether this person is that or this. It always wants to view it from a judgment perspective. So that's not to say there isn't knowingness, but knowingness knows, it doesn't judge on the knowing, right? It's a very different thing. So where are we? So this moon, Aquarius, right, is somehow a removal of the concrete of the ego, where it's like anything goes. Crazy energy, anything goes. Anything can be said, anything can, it's moon, come out of the blue. Sometimes when you're getting correspondence between twins, you're going to get what is, how can I put it? It's like contradictory information coming through. Everything's mutable, right? Everything is vibrational, therefore it's mutable. So there isn't really any concrete in the physical dimension. So you could look at a text, for instance, and it's read one thing, right? You could put your phone down, you could walk away, you could come back, you could pick it up, it could say something completely different. And in your mind, your egoic mind, you would be going, that can't possibly have happened because it said something before, and I know it said something before, therefore it should say the same thing now. But because everything is vibrational, things can change, right? And that's the truth. That is the truth. The truth isn't, it said that, therefore it has to say that again. So just to be aware that it could be like, also, it's almost like, this is what the Aquarius moon can be like. It can be like you hear somebody say something before they've physically said it. So you might hear it in your head, exactly what they're going to say before they physically say it to you. Because the vibration precedes the action. And with twin flames, the vibration always precedes the action. The vibration's the important thing. And the whole of the process is about understanding that everything vibrational is the reality, not the concrete. And Aquarius is about mental, the mental processes, freedom. Aquarius is about freedom, right? So it's the freedom of mentality to be whatever it assumes to be vibrationally. So not just getting messages from your own higher self at this moon, but hearing something that's going to be said to you before it's actually put into a text maybe, or received through an email. Could be between you and your twin, could be between you and somebody else. It could be any extrapolation of vibration that's in the requirement of your process. Because it's not always twin, it's something else before it's twin. There's precedents that need to be set of how you engage in the physical through understanding that everything is that vibration before it's physical, because only then you can detach from the concrete and not have to have everything up front, right? Like it's in the signed contract. Hope that makes sense. Right, underneath we've got 10 of Pentacles, completion in the physical. So gearing up for something to complete in the physical, momentum building towards this moon that is about communication, out of self communication, which is what twin flame process is, right? It's out of body, basically, out of physical. King of Swords, which is the brain of the masculine. Mastery of the brain. Mastery of the brain is letting go of the ego, right? It's letting go of anything that would hurt you. A thing that hurts you is your own ego. It's your own mind. And it's the stories you tell yourself in your head about the harm that you would do to yourself if you were to engage in a certain way in a physical environment, because that's what fear is. It's the fear of either doing something or not doing it. It's the fear of experimentation, because everything is an experiment until you do it. Everything's an experiment until you say it, right? Once you've done it, it's no longer an experiment. Once you've said it, it's no longer an experiment. It's been done, therefore it is. So this moon is about the process of the mastery of the masculine aspect, which is the brain, which is the ego. But it's experimental because it is Aquarius, so it's going to be mastery of experimentation. So it's very much that just do it, just say it, however ridiculous it sounds. And because it's vibrational first, like they say, you might hear it before it's said. You might know it before it's written. You might know it before it's come through. Something like that. Let's look at completion in the physical. You see, the mastery of the process itself is that understanding that there is more to this existence than what appears in the physical, and that it's not concrete, and that actual understanding has to come on board. You have to light up that grid inside yourself with that complete understanding, because that's what the process is requesting. So that's what might be offered if you're at the place where you're ready for that. If not, it'll come along with another Aquarius moon at some point. Completion physical. Go with the flow, Queen of Cups. So again, it's just like relax, basically, Queen of Cups. Relax, let go. Don't do anything, right? You don't have to do anything. Ground yourself. That's all they're saying there. So it's not about, okay, I'm going to make this contact. I'm going to speak to this person. I'm going to ask them for this. I'm going to say that. It's not about that for the feminine at this moon. This is masculine energy coming through the brain. So it's just about you letting go and relaxing if you're operating from your feminine perspective. And if you are in any way challenged by your own, not your own ego, but by ego at this moon, it's just being viewable. Just know that. The best thing to do with an ego is to know that it's ego. It's not to the less you become at one with that ego, the better off you're always going to be. So even if there's just a small part of your faculties that are able to say, I'm an ego, that's what this is, then that's what you do, right? And then you just batten down the hatches and let it move through you, through less resistance. So you go with the flow, allow it to move through you, because if it's masculine energy and it's completing through you, it's going to be ego coming through you, perhaps. Some other people might have it as masculine energy that's completing through the masculine counterpoint and not the feminine. So they might not feel it coming through. They might go through a let go, an organic let go at the moon. So suddenly out of ego completely and into higher self and the freedom of that. Let's have a look. I'm going to put one down on the Magician, rebirth, manifestation, and that's into the physical, the Empress. And then we've got 5 of Swords, Fool, brand new journey, 0 point. The world Four of Cups, which is the drama really of something not being there emotionally. So that always causes a drama if it's viewed from an egoic lens, right? That something is not right because something is missing. So there's a lot of pain in that consideration. So freedom from pain, we might be getting there in that Four of Cups. A complete let go of that pain. It's again, things happen in this process organically, so it's not thought out. It's not like you have to think about it or do anything. It's just going to happen when it's going to happen. It's a bit like giving birth, as in the baby comes when the baby's come in, not when you want it to come. And there's no option for a cesarean in this journey. Nine of Cups, happiness, and the Moon. So there is let go with this Moon. Free flow. They're talking about freedom flow. Freedom. Freedom. What is there freedom from? Only ever freedom from the ego. Whilst you're alive, or appearing to be alive. That's the only thing that you're required to be free from. The part of yourself that would hurt yourself. Two of Swords, which is your mind, telling you the stories and reminding you of the things that hurt you. Two of Swords. Oh, Page of Swords, lessons around the mind. Ten of Swords. And pages are brand new things as well, number one. New things around the mind, also texts and emails. Coming from it, a let go of ego, right? Because the Two of Swords, it's upside down, so that's a let go of ego. And that's the Moon underneath that's rising. So coming with the Moon, ending in the mind, running through the brain of the masculine and mastery of the process. Let's go in here. And then ending through the feminine, Nine of Swords. So it's an ending in the feminine's mind of the ego. So that is the masculine coming into mastery of their mind through the ego ending in the feminine. But that ego, of course, is the masculine. And it'll be their ego. And it'll be just a general masculine energy. It will just be ego. Right? The ending of all ego, basically, which is what the process is about. That's what the two people are doing. They are ending ego. Lovers. And again, the connection through the mind, Eight of Swords. So that's how you connect through the mind. So it's not like he's thinking about me, or he's thinking this about me, or he's thinking that about me, or what is he thinking? It's you're connected through the thinking itself. And that is it, about the ego. So it's about how you cause yourself to feel through how you think. Because like they say, the ego is a part of yourself that would wound you by retelling stories of how you've been hurt before. So try to make sure you don't get hurt again. Because there's no freedom in that though, is there? That's concrete. That happened before, therefore that's going to happen again. That happened to me before, it's going to happen again, right? Where's the freedom in that? There isn't any freedom. There's no experimentation in that because there's no willingness to experiment with something. It's concreted. That's how it is, and that's going to be how it's going to be. It's just a complete back and forth of that, right? And that's what the ego does. So the ego would prevent you from loving again if it could, because it would state that you tried to love before and you got hurt before, so you should never do that again, right? And what this process is about overcoming that ego and coming into where you're able to love again. And that love that this process is about source energy. And source energy is freedom itself. Because you cannot be happy until you're free of the ego. Because the ego is always going to try and make you unhappy. Right? And that's what the process is. So the mastery in the mind, that's the mastery of the ego, of the masculine, is the ability to love again. It's not a choice between head or heart, because there's no choice like that in the process. It's an organic arrival into what is freedom to love again through the process of dissolving the ego. That is what appears to be in the physical between the two people, which can be anything at any time, from hatred to love, until it dissolves into only love. Through the letting go of all the stories that would tell you have to hate. They did that, they did this, therefore I've got to hate them. And that could be about anybody, not just the twin, because the process is about everybody you've ever known, not just the twin. And everything you've ever thought, and not just the twin. So that. Ace of Cups and Judgment, which is destiny, right? And I've already said, well, love is not judgment, right? So there's no judging anything in love. It's freedom. Judgment in this card is about destiny. So the destiny is freedom. Freedom to love again. How do you approach that? Freedom to love again. Well, it's experimental, isn't it? And it's got to be through the brain, because that's what the brain is for. That's why we have one, so we can say things. So we couldn't say anything if we didn't have a voice, right? And the voice is what we speak our thoughts. So mastery. So where they're saying, right, it's erratic, this energy of this moon, I just feel like this is all experimental, right? Twin flame process is an experiment. It's an experiment in arriving in higher self while still in a human physical body with an ego. That's arrival in highest energy, happiness. I've got that coming with the moon there, right? It's freedom to love again. So it's stopping yourself, it's letting go of holding yourself at bay from love, right? And it's connecting, divine love is connecting through the mind here. Mastery of the mind in the process. Destiny is the love again. But there's just something really, Empress, creation, manifestation, and the Fool, a brand new journey, dark to light. You see, when things come into physical manifestation in the physical environment, whether that's a word or a step onto the earth or whatever, it's created through dark and light, because otherwise it can't exist in the physical environment. It has to have both to be manifested into the physical. And because everything is vibrational before it's manifested, right, means that in that creation of that moment of manifestation, you could have, if you look at it, you could have like 90% from light and you could have 10% from dark, because there has to be something there, right, to make it physical. So when you're looking at communication through twins that's coming into the physical, you're going to have a certain amount of ego, because otherwise it couldn't be created. You have to have the spoken word, the written word. But it's got to come from light. That communication has to come from light. So I'm just feeling there could be some miscommunication. But it would literally be a miscommunication that is, 1 minute you're like, did they really say that? I don't know if I like that. I think they're saying this to me or that to me. And then a complete, it turning out to be something completely opposite, like, oh, that's what they meant. Oh, well, that's really good then. Do you know what I mean? Because it will be light, but it might have some dark that's bringing it through that makes it appear to be of not quite what the inquiry is, they're saying. So that, because it's coming through the feminine as well, and it's ending through the feminine's mind ultimately here, but it's coming through the masculine, it's in process, and it's coming in as a word in the spoken word, and it's, or the written word, and it's through the ego, but it's from higher energy. And again, because it's that manifestation process, it might just be that you hear something in your head that then you read it exactly the same thing written down, and you're like, which helps you see, of course, because everything's vibrational, because before it comes physical. So it's not unusual at all that I should have known that in my head before I read that, or known that it would say that, or known that it would come through right now. Because the energy of Aquarius is what is transformational in terms of things being different, because Aquarius is about being different. It's about being unusual, and it's about being a little bit off center, right? Crazy. Okay. Anything else? just that. On the physical feminine is we get Six of Cups coming out, which is reunion. Physical reunion for twin flames is really, it's a reunion with your soul self. That's what it's about. It's about a reunion with your inner child, and it's about the wonder of being alive. So before there's any kind of physical reunion with another person, there is a full reunion with self that is required and will happen. And that full reunion is the joy of being alive. And that is equivalent to being in your inner child, because children are only in love with being alive. They haven't got concreted yet into the misery of being alive, which only comes through egoic nonsense about how hard it has to be alive, and how difficult it's going to be alive, and how, you might as well just forget it right now, because it's really difficult life, right? Children don't see that. Children are like, it's great, I love it here. So that is what they're saying, basically. Reunion within a child first. But you got to remember as well that inside of you, your inner child, that's your twin as well, because your inner child is higher energy. Your twin is higher energy. Your twin is your higher self. So it's all reunion with another person that's existing inside of you before that person is manifest outside of you. And in terms of what love brings and destiny of love, there is multiple opportunities. Timing, Wheel of Fortune. Choices, Two of Wands, any road forward. Love comes in myriad forms, right? Eight of Cups, which is the love comes from love. So you manifest from love when you're in love. And all you have to be in love with is in love with yourself, in love with life. It's not about loving another person and setting that person outside of yourself as a target for reconnection. It's about setting your target inside your own heart in the feeling of love for life itself. And therefore reclaiming the joy of life and reclaiming the joy of love. Because love is love, it's not misery, it's not contempt, it's not hatred, it's not feeling like burdened and feeling like hard done by or victimized. Love is love. Love is freedom, love is joy, love is happiness. Love doesn't see boundaries in terms of that. It's expansion into more love. And in that brings love of all sorts, brings more to love. So the more you love, the more love you get back. And that's what twin flame process is. So as much as we might be in the mind at this moon and experimenting between twins in terms of how messages are conveyed and how vibration is understood, we are also in the journey of coming fully into the heart aspect, which is just feeling love. And there's a full stop after that. So it's not about this person or that person or any person. It's just about feeling love, engaging with the feeling of love, which is also engaging with the feeling of laughter and feeling of freedom and setting free of the concrete of existence and the fear of the concrete. And the concrete is fear. All right, so that's it for the moon. And I'll be back with some monthlies at some point soon. Wishing you all lots of love. I've just got to switch this thing off now. Lots of love. Take care. Bye.